I estimate that 50% of the foreigners who move to Mexico with the intention of living here forever end up moving away for good within 5 years. These are the reasons why. The first reason is police corruption. Thankfully, in my 4.5 years living in Mexico, I've never dealt with any of this, but I am aware that it happens. And for some people, it's just too much. Like, they have bad experiences with police and they decide to get the heck out of here. Now, I am aware that it happens more often in certain places of the country than in others. For example, it happens a lot around Mexico City and in the Riviera Maya, like the Cancun to Tulum corridor. The next reason foreigners leave Mexico is because they came here with a limited budget and then they realized that they don't have the budget to pay for health expenses out of pocket here, whereas if they go back home to where they're from, they have health insurance provided by their government. So for some people, the cost of health care is too much to allow them to stay in the country. Although on this topic, I would like to say that the cost of healthcare here is so much cheaper than in other places. For example, if you want to have a baby in the US, you're going to be paying something like 20 or 30,000 US dollars. If you want to have one here in Mexico, it's going to be like $1,000 or $2,000. If you want to see a specialist here in Mexico, you can usually get in that same day, or if not, that same week. And a specialist usually costs about 800 pesos, which is 40 US dollars, give or take, depending on the current exchange rate. Reason number 3 is work related, and that is simply that their company transfers them to a new location. The fourth reason is insecurity in Mexico. Now, thankfully, in my 4.5 years living in the country, I've never felt unsafe, but I know for a fact that this isn't the case with everyone. In fact, I was in an Uber just yesterday, and I was talking to the Uber driver, and he said he recently moved here from Mexico City because of the insecurity in Mexico City. And I asked him, oh, is that because of robberies? And he's like, well, robberies and extortions and kidnappings, just way too much bad stuff happening, and he didn't feel comfortable living there anymore. Now, he's a Mexican who just decided to move to a different Mexican state. However, this does apply to a lot of foreigners who come to Mexico as well. They come here and they just don't feel safe, so they head on back to where they came from. The fifth reason, this is one that I hear about happening a lot, and that is simply a friend or family member gets sick and then they go back to where they came from to take care of that person. The next reason is the kids want to move back. I've seen 2 different YouTube videos where the woman was a single mom and ended up moving back to the country that they came from because the kids wanted to move back there. In fact, I just saw one today where she has 3 kids, a couple of them are teenagers, and the 2 oldest ones really wanted to go back to the US. So that's what made them leave Mexico. The 7th reason is mask requirements. It is currently June 2022, and still throughout almost the entire country, you have to be wearing a mask to get in a taxi, to get in an Uber, to go into any business at all. And for some people, this alone is enough reason to move somewhere else. Number 8 is another pretty common reason, and that is people leaving the country because of the loss of their partner, whether that's through a breakup or from them passing away. But yeah, after the loss of a partner, a lot of people decide that the best option for them is to go back where they have a better support system. And on a similar relationship topic, number 9 is that they find love and they end up leaving Mexico to go somewhere to be with their new partner. You might be thinking, I can't believe you haven't talked about X, Y, or Z. Well, that's probably because it was in part 1 that we made on this topic a couple of years ago. So if you haven't seen that video, you can click on that right up here. Another reason a lot of foreigners leave Mexico, specifically Canadians, is because they leave in the spring or summer to go back to Canada and enjoy the nice summer weather there, and also continue to get their health care, and they have to spend 6 months in the country every year to continue to qualify for that, if I understand that correctly. But yeah, that's a really common reason for people to leave for at least part of the year. Number 11 is they find better income sources outside of the country and decide that they'll live a better quality of life elsewhere. Another reason people leave Mexico is because they lose their income source that they had working remotely, or whatever they were trying to do to earn an income in Mexico didn't pan out. For example, a while back, China changed their laws, and a lot of people living in Mexico were earning an income online teaching English to Chinese students. Well, after this law change, they could no longer teach these Chinese students, so a lot of these foreigners living in Mexico lost that very important source of income and then ended up leaving the country. A lot of foreigners, when moving to Mexico, have this picture in their mind of this perfect life that they want to live, and oftentimes that means living by the beach or living right on the water. Well, many of them have never lived on the water before or in a climate like that, and after a year or two of living in Mexico, they realized, oh my gosh, I cannot stand this weather. I thought I was going to love it, but I hate it, and I need to move somewhere else. Now, some of these people find another place in Mexico that has a better climate, like here in Querétaro, for example. It's right in the center of the country at about 6,100 feet of elevation, so the weather is perfect year-round. So some people choose another place in Mexico after finding out they hate the beach weather. However, some just end up heading back to where they came from or going somewhere else. Another reason is a lot of people come to Mexico hoping to make a career out of vlogging or doing something similar like I'm doing, and then after a while they decide that they're just not making enough money doing it, or that their expenses are way higher than they thought it was going to be because this equipment is expensive, travel is expensive, so the cost of doing it really add up. Reason number 14 is that a lot of foreigners and retirees come here on a fixed budget, like they're on Social Security or they're on a pension or something like that, and prices here in Mexico have increased a lot over the last several years, especially in certain tourist destinations where a lot of foreigners live. So there's quite a few people who have decided that they can't quite live the life they want on their budget, and they go seeking out another cheaper country. After I tell you number 15 on this list, I'm going to link to part 1 of this video, which has many more reasons why expats leave Mexico, and honestly, they're probably even more important for you to know than the reasons in this video, so click on that video after you hear number 15. And the last reason is Mexico's crackdown on immigration. A lot of foreigners have either been living here illegally or just being a perpetual tourist and going in and out of the country every 6 months or so and getting a new tourist card that's valid for 180 days. Well, Mexico has changed those policies quite a bit, and at the same time, the financial requirements for residency in Mexico have increased a lot, which have caused quite a few people to leave the country. If you want to see part 1 of this video that was recorded a couple of years ago, it's just as relevant today as it was then, so click on that video. There's lots of important reasons that you might want to know about if you see Mexico in your future.